Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so I am trying something a little bit different with editing, so this is just going to be a short video that I'm hoping films okay. If you're seeing this, obviously it did. I'm hoping it films okay, it edits okay. I'm back with my camera. I really missed the quality. I'm back with my microphone. I can't lie, I really did miss the quality. I love filming on my phone for ease, convenience, and how I just love being able to open up my phone and film my thoughts in that exact moment. So the phone videos aren't going away, but I've just been kind of itching to try this new way of editing that is hopefully going to save me some time and be easier, so that's why I abandoned this in the future. Anyway, a little bit behind the scenes in case you were wondering what exactly is going on here. Okay, so today's video is, okay. This is a pretty casual type of video, as all of mine are, but I had planned to film a January wrap-up video, and then I noticed that I literally had talked about every single book that I read in January, either through a vlog or through a dedicated video like the series review for Carissa Broadbent. So I didn't really feel like going back over and talking about them, even just to give a sentence. It just seemed kind of like a waste of time. I know not everybody watches vlogs, but personally I think they're some of my most watched content. So if you're watching me, you probably watch my vlogs. And if you don't and you would like to see just short format wrap-ups, then let me know down below. But something I did really want to talk about today, or include, which I usually do include in my wrap-up videos, is the books I've DNF'd, because I really, truly, very rarely include those in a vlog, unless I did a few. A few of these did show up in a vlog. But I love having the chance to talk about why I DNF'd a book, what specifically wasn't working for me. I just find that interesting when other people do that as well. So I am definitely going to be talking about some books that are, you know, favorites. So if you don't want to hear any negativity about books, this video is not for you, because that's literally all I'm going to be doing, is talking about the problems that I had with these books. Most of them on a technical level, some of them are personal preference, you know. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, the first book that I want to talk about is Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. This is a book that I was extremely excited about. It's a YA fantasy, but I believe it's like upper YA. This is a spin-off to her original series, but the author has said you don't need to read the original series. I was most interested in this because I saw a reel going around that says this book has the line, "Don't touch my wife" in it, which is a weakness of mine. That type of protective hero I just love so freaking much, and I was excited about this book. So I requested the audio from my library. I do own a physical copy, and my hold came in, and I started listening to it, and I could tell right away that this was going to be a much more different story than I was anticipating. There's nothing technically wrong with this book from what I read. I really only listened to the first, maybe half of the first chapter, and then I noticed I was tuning out. I wasn't really paying attention. I was having a hard time getting engaged with the story. This book started out pretty slow with not really anything that engaged, or it didn't really have an inciting incident to keep you reading. It was just sort of this slow unveiling of setting the stage, and that can definitely work sometimes, and some of my favorite books are like that. But I do really feel like this was a case of, I'm just not in the mood for that type of story right now. I didn't have the bandwidth to pay attention to something that required so much focus in an audiobook, and I didn't personally want to physically read it at that time. So I DNF'd that. I don't think there's anything wrong with this book at all. I just think it was, you know, it wasn't grabbing my attention. That's the part where the technical flaw comes in, because truthfully, your first chapter should be your absolute strongest. That should be the chapter that hooks your reader and gets them engaged with the characters and the story. And if it doesn't, there's a problem there. So I don't think that every reader will respond to that in the same way that I did, but I know for sure there was nothing engaging about the first chapter that was immediately captivating me and requiring me to have read that book at that moment. So I temporarily DNF'd it. I did keep my physical copy because I want to read it one day. It just felt like a case of, I'm not feeling it right now, you know? Okay, the next book I want to talk about, and I may have been afraid to talk about this book a few years ago, but now I don't even freaking care. So this book is What Was Meant to Be by QB Tyler, and this is the second try I gave this author, and I immediately, after I had only read about 12% of this book, I was like, this author is so not for me. I really do not like her writing style at all. I don't have a problem necessarily with taboo romances, but my problem with them, my biggest problem with any type of taboo, you know, romance is that the author doesn't do enough work to get me to be able to buy into this completely off-the-wall concept. I feel like most taboo romances that I have read, with a few exceptions, the author does not put in enough effort to really set the stage so that you can suspend your disbelief and get fully on board with this book. And I think this is something that has increased with me over time. My ability to be able to buy into some concept is, you know, it takes quite a deft hand for me to be able to suspend my disbelief, and this was definitely one of those cases. I really don't like how this author goes pedal to the metal right from the get-go, and I'm not just talking about sex. Even though this book was literally almost entirely sex, and it didn't feel hot to me. I don't think it's hot sex. I know a lot of people disagree. No, I could not stop rolling my eyes at how over the top this was, how cringy some of the dialogue was, the decisions the character made that seemed completely just like a knee-jerk reaction that felt very forced on the author's part. I just really don't like that type of thing. This author, I realized that with this book, and this is why I'm not going to be reading from her anymore. I've given her a couple of chances, and I went into them with an open mind, ready to have my opinion changed. But it's her writing style that is the problem. It's not the subjects that she's telling a story about. Her writing style is what I like to call the sledgehammer approach, where she is going to do everything in her power to force a reaction from the reader without giving them any time to really feel that or work up to it or be led through her text. She just sort of like throws stuff in there, kitchen sink type of effect, which to me just feels so heavy-handed and amateurish, and I need a little more finesse. I need a lot more finesse, if I'm being quite honest. I really disliked this. I didn't rate it on Goodreads, but I did leave a review, and I just feel like if you love this author and this book, I think that's wonderful. This author is never going to be for me because she lacks the finesse and the care that I really need to get on board with some of the subjects she's talking about, because it just feels laughable to me. So that was a DNF. Moving on. The next book I want to talk about is Alone with You in the Ether. So I did a video where I was reading a first chapter from several books, and this was one of them. I was very excited about this. It seemed like it was getting a lot of hype for the writing that was literary fiction meets romance, and look, I absolutely vibe with literary fiction and romance. And I was ready. I was ready to read this. I was ready to have my heart broken. But again, this author's writing style was just so unreadable. You know, I feel like at times when I'm talking about books and writing, I always worry that I come across sounding pretentious because I want the quality of the writing to be very high. I sort of need that in order to read the story, to get invested in the story. The writing quality has to be high. That does not mean it needs to be flower, it needs to be using all these strange literary devices. It doesn't mean that it has to be like groundbreaking in the prose, but the quality of the writing needs to be high to the point where I'm just feeling the story, and I'm also feeling the effect of the author's words, because she or he or they has deliberately chosen these words to tell this particular story. This book this is truly one of the most pretentious books I've ever read, and I've read a lot of pretentious books, and a lot of them I've really enjoyed, and this one I was just like, you're trying too hard, you know? It's not working. There is no way to feel anything for these characters because the words are such a stumbling block. They're drawing so much attention to themselves. She's using so many words to say literally nothing at all. And I've talked about it before, and I'm going to say it again. I really love when authors use brevity with their words, when they are very specific and exact with the prose that they're using, because they know how to use words in a way that will elicit a feeling from you that is not hitting you over the head with a hammer, but is also not just trying to be superfluous and wordy and flowery just for the sake of putting words on the page in a way that sounds profound and meaningful, because that never happens. That never works. This book, again, was... oh gosh, it was so cringy. It was so bad. I just absolutely hated it. So I DNF'd it, and I did unhaul that book because I bought the physical copy. I was very excited, and I think it's truly one of the worst pieces of fiction that I've ever read. Okay, so now this next book is called The Words. It's pretty popular, lots of people love this book. So the interesting thing about why I DNF'd this book is that I did not DNF this because I wasn't enjoying it. I was reading it, I started just reading a few chapters of it, and I actually was pretty engaged with the author's writing and with the setup, the characters. I thought it had potential to go somewhere. But then I was hearing some things from Jessen, who was reading it. I had ended up just sort of setting it aside, and I was like, I'm more interested in this other audiobook, so I'm going to set this aside and maybe get back to it at a future date. And Jessen, I asked her to just tell me all of her reactions and thoughts because we have pretty similar feelings about books and writing, and she was telling me everything, and as she was telling me, I was like, I would absolutely hate that book. I am positive that I would absolutely hate that book. So I just DNF'd it, and I don't know that I'll get back to it. I actually, of all of the books on this list, this one and the next book I'm going to mention are the ones that I'm most interested in going back and seeing if maybe at a different time if my feelings would change. But this one specifically, I'm really curious to know how I feel, because a lot of times if a book, a romance, has a hero that's really unlikable, it really depends on how deftly that author portrays that situation and how she shows me how they're actually falling in love that can get me on board with that hero, because it's not always a hard pass. It all depends on how skilled the author is at showing me that type of scenario and relationship and getting me to buy in and believe that it's working. So I'm not sure that this author would do that for me, but I'm also not sure that she wouldn't. So this is one that I'm still really curious about, and I do think that I'm gonna let some time pass and I may try this one again. So, okay, so now this next book kind of broke my heart, but the reason I DNF'd this is literally because it was feeling pretty heavy and sad, and my library hold was running out. So I actually really want to read this book again. The audiobook was fantastic. It has multiple narrators. It is Remarkably Bright Creatures. So this is a literary fiction book I had been hearing really great things about, and it's really interesting because it has two points of view. One is from an octopus who's living in an aquarium, and his point of view is the first one that you get, and he is adorable and endearing, but he's also just like, he has this very scientific, great intellectual mind, but also he has the mind, like he's seeing the world through the eyes of an octopus in an aquarium. So he has a very human intelligence, but he also recognizes that he's an octopus, and he's watching the lives of the people that work at the aquarium, and one of them is a woman, an older woman, who I think she's like 70. She's working there, and she ends up rescuing this octopus and saving his life. And the octopus finds out that she actually has lost a son. He just went missing, and she doesn't know what happened with him. So the octopus then decides that he's going to solve this mystery. So as I'm saying this, I'm thinking that it sounds like the concept of this sounds a bit out there. But as I was reading this, I was instantly hooked with the octopus's point of view. And then when we would switch to the woman's point of view, I found myself just feeling like that heaviness, that sadness that she felt of being all alone and being older and her son never knowing what happened to him. And I was just like, I just can't read this right now. This is too much for me. And so I put it aside, and then my hold expired. So that one is another one that I definitely want to get to. Okay, so those are the books that I have DNF'd recently. Let me know your thoughts on if you think I should continue with any of these. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one. If you want to leave me an octopus or squid emoji, that would be fun, and I'll see y'all in my next video.